shouldn't say better, the more substantial the karmic seed, the more significant the result, and the faster the result. Right? Karmic seeds have a queuing process. It's like airplanes in an airport queuing to take off or land. They have to they line up and they go in order. And so there are certain things that you can do to move things up in the queue or move things back in the queue, right? In terms of what's ripening from your karmic pocket. Right? In the mind-only school, so we have to talk about the mind-only school a little bit. Well, I said we're going to talk about karmic correlations, but to finish answering your question, karma can ripen in an instant. You can do something, collect the karma, and watch it ripen, a minute later or an hour later. Okay? It's not the case that karma only ripens, next lifetime or in 20 years or something like that. So karmic seeds can ripen anywhere, right?
I remember Geshe saying it doesn't happen in this lifetime, it always is the next lifetime.
No, if that were the case, then there would be no point to the higher teachings, to the tantric teachings, because then you wouldn't be able to become enlightened in one lifetime.
Right, that's true.
So the whole point of higher practices is to collect karmas, which are more powerful, which ripen faster. So
maybe you were just speaking in like mind only or something like that.
Another thing I heard, because some people they say, why, for me, everything I do on a specific issue, it's immediately ripening some catastrophe, and for somebody else, you always get away from it. So it's also something that I heard that when you do a specific non-virtuous act, it's kind of water all the previous non-virtuous act of that same kind of quality. So even though it might not be that karma that just ripening for you now, it can be fruit to other karmas that are kind of ready on the launching pad of the same thing to manifest. So this is why when you really take a very strong moral decision not to do at all that specific action anymore, it kind of block so much of the potential karma of that kind that you already accumulated and it can be huge. One of the things.
Mm-hmm. So things don't come from nowhere, right? Everything is caused. If I have, well, we really need to go into this, but if I have a habit of lying, for example, it didn't come from nowhere. I didn't lie just out of the blue for no reason. Okay? I lied because I had collected a karmic seed in the past to lie. Okay? And that karmic seed ripened into me lying now. Why did I lie previously? Because I had collected karmic seed to lie from lying in the past. And so this is almost, you could say, infinite regression of lying, right? So by stopping myself from lying now, it impacts that entire regression of past lying, right? So it's very powerful to break that cycle. But it's also very difficult because you had how many times of lying have led to this instance. Right?
Sometimes you just do it and you didn't mean to do.
That's
it
a past
just
karma
comes
ripening.
out,
Past karma ripening, yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's exactly past karma ripening. Well, let's talk about the correlations because I don't want to run out of time. So, in terms of the karmas of body killing, right? So there's what's called the ripened result, which is that you take rebirth in the lower realm. If you engage in killing, then the ripened result is you take rebirth in the lower realm. Okay, and then the environmental result is, and they always start off with saying, even if you are reborn as a human, implying that it's not likely, right? But you kill, you're going to be reborn in the lower realm, and should you become reborn as a human subsequently sometime, then you have the karma to live in an environment which is dangerous, unhealthy, right? Threatening. Okay. And then if you kill, well, so let me finish with killing. So then the personal result, the corresponding personal result is, if I kill, then I'm going to have a sickly life, a shorter lifespan. Okay. Harm will come to me, right? Secondly, if I steal, right, the personal result is that people will steal from me. I won't have things that I need. I'll have a hard time keeping my stuff, right? Or I'll have to share my things. I'll never own them personally. They'll always be kind of communal property. And then environmentally, we live in a place where there isn't enough. Like in India, it's like always famine. The masses of the population don't have enough. So then you live in a place where you don't have the material, your material needs are not met, right? And then the ripened result would be that you're born in the lower realm also. The ripened result for all of these is you're born in the lower realm. So for the 10 non-virtues. And then for sexual misconduct, born in the lower realm, the environmental result is you live in a place which is smelly and dirty and unpleasant. And that personal corresponding result is that it's hard to keep a partner. People are always checking out your partner, vying for your partner, interested in your partner. And then with all these things, the other element to this is you have a tendency to do it again. You create the tendency to repeat the behavior in yourself. So if I steal, I am creating the predisposition to steal again within myself, right? Creating that habit, right, that disposition, right, in my next life. So you can see it becomes difficult. It's like any habituation is that way. The more and more you do something, the more the habit is ingrained and the harder it is to change it, right? And then
that's also what bleeds into, I guess, what we call instinct, right? Like an animal's instinct to kill or to...
Yeah, and from a Buddhist perspective, it's karma ripening. You have karmic seeds which you've collected, and those karmic seeds are ripening continuously into that behavior. And so from a Buddhist perspective, it's not instinct, it's just karma ripening. You have collected a tremendous amount of karma to kill, right? And guess what? That karma ripens into an environmental result, a personal behavioral result, and in a realm. So if you have all of these karmic seeds for killing, well, guess what? It could easily ripen into the perception of, being a rabbit that's constantly hunted, or whatever, something like that. Because it's not self-existent, the animal realm is not self-existent. It's a perceptual event for those beings, Looking down and seeing, furry paws, is a perceptual event, It's like looking down and seeing fingers and hands and arms is a perceptual event, that don't exist from their own side out there. Yeah.
What about people who have nervous breakdowns or mental diseases later on in life? Like, what happens? Is that just karmic?
Well, everything is karmic ripenings, right? So, the fact that we have a mind which functions the way it does is considered to be extremely rare and precious. Okay? To have a mind which is balanced, right, which is clear thinking, to have outer circumstances where we can live safely, comfortably, healthily, is all considered to be quite rare and quite unusual. And so, this idea of, precious existence, precious human existence, and we take it for granted when we have it. And, you can meet people who had stable lives at one point. They had good circumstances at one point, and then, medical emergency, hospital bills, declare bankruptcy, no longer have stable outer circumstances. All their time and energy is spent living and surviving, right? No freedom of leisure or time to do anything except survive, right? You meet people who, whose minds were bright and alert and clear, and function in a certain way, and maybe they have traumatic events in their life, right? And then their mind is changed and it never functions the same way again. right? And they can't think straight, or they can't function straight. I mean, I know somebody, that was in, got shot up in the war, and, came back and they're on, 23 different medications just to be able to sleep through the night, and not feel like somebody's trying to kill them, and it is having a stable, functioning, balanced mind is not assured. A stable, balanced, functional mind can change at any instant. I mean, they do. And that's what death is ultimately, right? Death is ultimately the mind changing and no longer perceiving stability, right? But there are many ways that the mind can shift and change into unstable perceptions other than death, right? Could be, anxiety or more depression or any number of things, right? So we tend to take a stable, bright, alert, clear thinking mind as a given for granted, and it's not. It just isn't.
You need to get a certain amount of sleep.
Yeah, sleep is important too, right? Definitely. So, all right, on to speech. Well, we did body, right? So speech. So for all of these, the ripened result is birth in the lower realm. So I'm not going to repeat that. So the environmental result for lying is people. You're in a place where you're around untrustworthy people. Dangerous, untrustworthy people that you can't count on, deceptive people, right? And you live in a place where your work doesn't come to anything. And then the corresponding result, personal result, is that people don't believe you. You can have great ideas and say wonderful things, and people simply won't take you seriously, won't believe you. Right? Okay, then divisive talk. So the I don't want to repeat every time. The corresponding personal result for each of these is you create the habit in yourself to do it again in the future, right? So whether it's lying or divisive speech or harsh words, you're creating you're strengthening the habituation to behave this way again in your future. Right? So it's the same for everything. So anyway, where were we? Harsh words? What were we on? Lying? Divisive talk. So then you were surrounded by unpleasant sounds, right? Garbage trucks, sirens, protests, right? I mean, you have to hear a lot of unpleasant things. And then idle talk. People don't listen to you, right? They don't take what you say seriously. They don't give you any notice really. And then environmentally, for divisive talk, you live in a place with sort of unpleasant surroundings like thorny bushes and things which are unpleasant to be exposed to and to come in contact with, like Arizona perhaps. Not sufficient water, or rough ground, frightening. So, and then idle talk. You live in a place where there isn't a lot of pleasantness around. No parks. Foods don't ripen at the right times. And then for mind, we have the craving. If you engage in craving, then you create the habit to do it again, obviously.
Like drinking for craving?
Yeah, you could have that. Typically, you're overcome by feelings of desire, and you create the cause to be overcome by feelings of desire. And then for ill will, same thing. You create disposition to behave that way again, and you're overcome by feelings of dislike. And the environmental result for ignorance is that it's very interesting. It's really our world and our realm. You know, you live in a place where things which are the cause of suffering are actually venerated as something good. You know, get ahead on someone else. You know, put someone else down and show that you're better than them, and you know you're a good person. You know, you're a superior person, right? The karmic result of ignorant view is that wisdom is degenerated and become lost, and things which are actually impure are considered to be pure and considered to be great and pleasant things. So, so if you have craving, the environmental result is you're born in a place where things are getting worse, progressively worse, and for ill will, then you live in a place where there are a lot of sort of malicious things, whether they be animals or insects or other kinds of beings. So,
like Australia, venomous snakes. I have a question from online.
Yeah.
I have two people saying thank you for teaching.
Oh, that's nice.
And then
Is that the cat? No.
the cat said that. And one person asked, when you were talking about vows, it seems that the guilt factor keeps a person from in a mental prison of continuing to create a bad karma, because you can't stop feeling guilty, in the sense that if you kill someone in self-defense or something, to protect a child or something, and the system says you're guilty and you're put in jail, your horrible surroundings and your every action is a reminder that you're this guilty person. So you might never get out of that cycle once you enter it, because the society or the place we live in acts that way. And then they said it's hard to put into words, but can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, you know, there's this idea of spirals, right? Downward spirals and upward spirals. And when one is in a downward spiral, it's very hard to reverse it. It's very hard to arrest it and reverse it. And that's why, from a karmic perspective and from a Buddhist practitioner perspective, it's very important to try to get on the upward spiral. And it's one of the reasons why it's so important to seize the opportunity when our mind is balanced, when we do have time and space and resources, to create that virtuous upward cycle, you know, that's going to carry us to where we want to get to, which is the end of suffering, right? And a better and better life. But so often what happens is that we have leisure and opportunity, and we don't make good use of it, and then it's gone. You know, and like so many things, once it's gone, you go like, shit, how do I get it back? You know, it's like, damn, now I don't have all the things that I used to have, and I could have done something, and now I can't do something because I don't have the capacity and the resources. So, but more to the point, when one is in a downward spiral, it's very hard because the mind isn't functioning properly. The outer conditions are not supportive, they're not conducive at all. And it's a real challenge, and it's really hard. And it's important to learn techniques and methods to kind of come out of that. You know, and
The next question was, how do you do that in prison?
yeah. You know, there are actually prison projects and prison programs, some of which I think have been very well received. I mean, Jeff Eddy is doing one, you know, Jeff from our class is doing one. And I don't know a lot about it, but from what I've just seen and heard secondhand, there are some very strong practitioners in the prison systems. When we did our correspondence course program, we would have people who were studying and meditating quite diligently and in a really strong fashion, and applying themselves in a really concerted fashion. Now, you know, the worst possible environment, and that goes into a whole other situation of, you know, like society, you know, creating a system which perpetuates a downward spiral rather than providing support and opportunity to break a cycle. You know, but given what it is, the current state of affairs, if you will, you know, one is in a loud environment, you know, with dangerous people, and on and on and on, right? But one still has to start. You know, one still has to resolve to make efforts and make a start. And I think that the people who have resolved to make efforts and make a start and have shifted their perspective to think, I have time, you know, I don't have conducive outer conditions, but I have time. I have resources, you know, I can get the materials, I can study them, I can develop a meditation practice, I can develop a yoga practice, I can develop the intellectual understanding, and I can use this, you know, potential abundance of time to really change my inner landscape. And yeah, there are a lot of challenges to that, but from what I've seen, people have been able to do it and do it very well. So I mean, yes, granted, it's a lousy environment and not supportive and presents a real challenge at many levels. But the one thing that in principle is there is just the time and the opportunity, even if one has to deal with all of the countervailing influences. So, it's good.
Another question from someone else, if I can.
Yeah, sure.
In two parts. They said, how do you stop cyclical mental processes like depression and the rest that seem to occur regardless environmental cues? So, you know.
Yeah, it's very hard. You know, fundamentally, practice is about working with your mind, right? And if your mind is not under your control, you could say, hard to direct it. So I think one has to work with it. One can only work where they are, you know? And it's a challenge because one has to learn, one has to gain a certain toolkit to work with, you know, to be able to do something. So learning the methods and techniques to work with the mind is essential. And then you at least know what to do. And then it's a question of, can I do it given the state of my mind? So with a depressed mind and with a dark mind, I find one of the best things to do is to help other people, serve other people. You know, it takes one out of oneself, and is an antidote, you know, to that. Is to simply say, let me focus on others and let me focus on tangibly and meaningfully and directly helping others, you know, in some real way. And also aspiration is very important. You know, one could be in a place of, look, you know, I feel lousy, I feel miserable. You know, just think, I want everyone to be happy. You know, I want other people to not have this. And so, fundamentally, we're working with our mind. You know, and we have all these negative karmic seeds ripening, right, into this present experience and result of suffering in whatever way. And we have to be able to intercede in that thought process and trigger a new thought, which is a positive thought, right? To break the cycle. You know, now what is that positive thought going to be? Well, it's a question of where the person's at and what they can do. You know, I mean, bodhisattva motivation is a great place to start. You know, may every living being in every realm, you know, be happy and free of this suffering. You know, even if you just walk around thinking, you know, may every living being in every realm be free of depression. You know, that would be great progress. You know, and then you have to build. You have to go from there. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So we have to talk about the mind-only school a little bit because that's a big part of Abhidharma and the Abhidharma system. Mind-only school is not the highest presentation, but it is Abhidharma presentation, and that's the school we're in. So, according to the mind-only school, we collect karmic seeds. They believe that there had to be a place for karmic seeds to stay. They had the idea that, if you have these little seeds, they got to be put somewhere. And where is it that the little seeds are put? And so they had the idea of a kunchi or an alaya vijnaya, which is the place which holds your karmic seeds. And so, their position is, and their thinking is that when one collects a karmic seed, and that seed ripens, when the karmic seed ripens, it produces both the subject and the object. It produces the perceiver and the thing which is perceived. Okay? So the ripening of a karmic seed produces you and me perceiving you. We are both from the same karmic seed. We are both arising from the same karmic seed because we are of the same experience. Okay? So that's the idea. So they call it the foundation consciousness. In English, it's foundation consciousness. Just so you know, for the homework, just to do it quickly. In the homework, it says, according to mind-only school, what are you really looking at when you think you're looking at the sense faculty of your eye and outside physical forms as well? So they break it down to the senses. They say, Jacqueline, I have an eye. My eye is the organ which is perceiving. My eye is perceiving and taking in data from my mind. My eye is perceiving your form, and therefore I have an eye faculty perceiving your form. And they do that with all the senses, so don't be confused by the language, all right? And then I'm just going to hit the questions. There are many places in the sutras where the Buddha stated the whole universe and everyone in it is mind only. The mind only school took this to mean that there are no outer physical objects at all, meaning everything is just a mental experience. Everything we're doing here is just in my mind. Okay, there is nothing outside my mind, right? So that's a misunderstanding of the mind only school. Explain what two things the Buddha actually had in mind when he said that everything was mind only. So first, the universe is said to be mind only to assert that the mind is the primary source of things, not the exclusive source of things, and that the mind is creating and ripening karma. Okay, and that from a negative perspective, the universe is said to be mind only to deny that it could be produced from anything else, like a creator being. You know, to say so. I'm just going to look at that. And then explain how mental seeds from karma are planted, where they stay, how they go on until they produce their consequences according to the mind-only school. So how are seeds planted? Karmic seeds are planted through your awareness of what you do or say or think. I observe myself thinking, I observe my thoughts, I'm aware of my thoughts. That is the collection of mental karma. I hear my speech and I observe my speech. That is the collection of verbal karma. I observe myself doing physical things. That is a collection of physical karma. So it is the awareness of myself doing whatever I do is the vehicle through which I collect karmic seeds. So it's the karmic seed is essentially the latent residual energy that's left at the end of the thought or speech or deed, right? So if I think a negative thought, there's a residual negative energy left over, if you will, which is the karmic seed which I collect. The perception of me yelling at someone, right, and the residual energy associated with that is the collection of the karmic seed in my mind stream. Okay? So that's how we collect karma. That's how we plant karmic seeds, and that's how we collect karmic seeds, is through being aware of ourselves. Okay? No one else has to see it. You could be in the privacy of your own home, you know, collecting negative karma, cursing and swearing and thinking terrible thoughts, and it doesn't matter that no one else is observing it. It's not, Buddhism doesn't think there's some guy in the sky watching you who, you know, therefore punishes you. It's got nothing to do with anything other than the way in which your mind functions, and the way in which your subtle energetic system functions, and the way in which perception functions. Okay, so
seeds are kept in the heart, right?
I would say the mind stream, and the most subtle mind stream, so which would be associated there. So, so from a Buddhist perspective, there's no judgment, there's no value system about some guy in the sky or anyone outside you saying you were right or you were wrong or you were bad or you were good. It's simply, this is the nature of perception, this is how perception functions, this is how the mind functions, this is how the mind, this is how and why thoughts arise in the mind. Where do thoughts come from? Why do thoughts get bunk? Why? me say that. Why do thoughts arise? How's that better? Why do thoughts arise unbidden, unrequested, and unwelcome? Right? They arise themselves from nowhere for no reason. No, not from nowhere, no reason. Thoughts arise because they are the expression of karmic seeds arising. Okay? And they motivate the next things that follow that. All right? So karma and the system of virtue and non-virtue is simply an explanation of where things come from. Why do thoughts arise? What causes those thoughts to arise? And why do the things that follow on from those thoughts occur? And why, when thoughts arise, do I perceive them as positive or negative, pleasant or unpleasant? Okay, that's what karma is the explanation of all of that. Okay, so from the mind-only perspective, those mental seeds stay in the foundation consciousness for a very long time, replicating themselves and transferring their energy from moment to moment until they ripen and bring their result. And when the conditions are right, then certain seeds ripen and express themselves, right? And they ripen into a perception of something. You know, why did the thought, I'm bored, pop into my head, as opposed to, this is really fascinating, pop into my head? You know, didn't come from nowhere and it wasn't uncaused. Okay, certain seeds were triggered, which ripened into that thought, okay, and what follows. Just the same as, you know, why did the thought that that's a ceiling fan pop into my head? Why did the thought that Jacqueline has blonde hair pop into my head? It didn't come from nowhere, it wasn't uncaused, okay? Why did the thought that Jacqueline is a female come into my head and Hector is a male come into my head? It didn't come from nowhere. The fact that I'm speaking right now, and the fact that this is a particular series of words, and that these words are coming out of my mouth, didn't come from nowhere. They were caused. And it's not because I'm sitting here thinking, I want to say the word the next. And after I say the word the, then I'm going to say girl. And after I say the word girl, then I'm going to say the word wind. It doesn't work like that, does it?
When you're playing music, it does.
Can you elaborate?
Well, I'm recording recently, and I was like trying to remember the lyrics, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you remember the words that you're supposed to say next, maybe for acting or something like that, or for music.
Fair enough. Okay, so I think the last thing that I have to say tonight, just to be thorough and complete in case you don't come back next time, is you know, when we talk about karma, we have to talk about perception and reality, right? Where does our perception of reality come from? Why, when I look at these colors and shapes, do I think this form is in front of that form, and this form is separate from that form? Why is the thing I'm calling Jacqueline separate from the thing I'm calling the floor? And why is the thing I'm calling the blanket on her legs, and the thing I'm calling the sweater, you know, and on and on and on? All these things are arising to my mind and expressing themselves to me, to say, there's a woman there with a blanket, and the woman isn't the floor, right? And that is hair, and it is blonde. All of these things are coming into my mind. Where are they coming from? They're not from nowhere, they're not uncaused, okay? Those are karmic seeds ripening. So what is there?
Jacqueline is there.
A basis of projection. I mean, there's a basis of projection. There's something I'm projecting onto, right?
But she does exist, she's there.
For me in that way.
But she's still there.
For
You said
you.
what is, yeah, we all can agree she's there.
And if none of us were in the room and she weren't in the room, would she be there?
She would see herself as being there.
Not if she weren't in the room, but then it's a different thing. No, I'm being flip. So the issue is, what exists outside of one's perception and projection? Okay, Jacqueline comes into existence based upon me having certain thoughts. Right? I have certain perceptions, and certain thoughts arise based upon those perceptions. There's this stuff that I'm calling Jacqueline, and I'm defining this way, and I'm relating to this way, and I'm thinking of this way, right? And all of that is not conscious and directed, is not directed by me and by my conscious awareness mental processes. So all of that is the expression of karma ripening, okay? There is something there. There is a basis there. There is the raw material there, which I'm taking in through my senses, okay? I mean, I'm taking in wavelengths of light, you know, wavelengths of sound, and, you know, somehow it's all getting translated into Jacqueline, okay? Jacqueline doesn't exist outside of that mental process and that perception, okay? So, the fact that there's a basis there which I can project onto, right, is the essence of understanding emptiness, you could say. The fact that I understand that whatever is there is being supplied by me, right, is the essence of understanding karma and emptiness. My thoughts arise and my perceptions arise based upon my karmas which are ripening, not based upon what's out there. Right? It's the difference between thinking it's out there and I'm taking it in versus it's in here and I'm projecting it out. Right? In the normal world, most of us go through life thinking, I'm the passive radio receiver who's just picking up the signals of what's all around me. You know, I'm taking in information from outside of me, and I'm just taking it in and processing it. You know, there's sounds, and I'm taking them in and processing them. There's sights, I'm taking them in and processing them. But it's backwards. You know, in fact, we are conceiving of and creating the identity and the nature and the value and the meaning and projecting it outward, right, onto the stuff that's there, right? There is no stuff there outside of us that has its own nature or identity. Okay? Jacqueline only exists if someone comes up with a name and the idea of Jacqueline, right? So if the being that was there had the, I'm not going to go there, I'm going to stop because it's getting late. But I don't know if I made my point. I don't want to talk about a pen. I'm trying to do a different thing. Hopefully it came across. Good.
Mind Only School says that in order for me to exist, you have to perceive me. Did I?
Mind Only, no, the Mind Only School says that your existence and my awareness of you come from the same karmic seed. Okay? The Mind Only School says one karmic seed produces the perceiver and the thing which is perceived. Okay? So other schools would say there are different karmic seeds which are ripening into you, and different ways of describing. I think probably the last thing to say is that to make it meaningful, all of this talk about karma and emptiness, to make it meaningful, we have to accept personal responsibility for everything that goes on in our lives, right? And typically, a person will say, you know,
Things are happening to me instead of thinking that
yeah,
you brought it upon yourself sometimes.
yeah, thank you. So, you know, the notion that outside things are causing my reaction, outside things are causing me to feel a certain way, outside things are causing me to suffer or have a good life or have a bad life, right? That's backwards relative to understanding karma. Right?
Because you can just keep on like killing or keep on stealing or keep on lying because you assume that it's the world that's forcing you to do those things, when if you stop for a second, realize you project these, ability to stop doing it.
You know, it's understanding where things really come from, right? If I say, look, my valid reality is that somebody hit me over the head and it hurt and knocked me unconscious and I had to go to the hospital and it cost me a lot of time and money and pain, right? That's all true, right? Why did it happen? You know, Why did they hit me on the head and not the other person? And we could do the normal thing of, well, I just happened to be walking down the alley or around the wrong corner instead of somebody else, and it was random, or any other number of possible explanations, right? From a Buddhist perspective, we say everything is caused, nothing is random, okay? And so every single thing which happened to me, I collected the karma of the past and caused it to happen to me, right? And therefore, I am personally responsible for everything that happens to me, right? And I'm the cause of everything that happens to me. And I'm responsible for everything I feel and everything I experience. Now, we have to talk about it when we'll next week. That doesn't mean that, we're sheep. We just say thank you, I don't care if you mug me or steal from me or whatever else, right? I mean, understanding karma is implicitly tied to understanding ethics and what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. And so it's completely inappropriate to say, I'm okay with people hurting me because I collected that karma. It's not okay. There has to be a motivation to not suffer oneself, right? And to not harm oneself, and to not harm other people, and to have other people not, suffer and be harmed. So we have to talk about it next week, but I think the main point that I'm trying to make is that we are personally responsible for everything that has ever happened to us, and we are personally responsible to cause whatever future world we want to live in. And we have to do that aligned with our understanding of ethics and virtuous behavior.
I want
Yeah.
to ask
Yeah.
the previous point.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I don't understand about mind-only school. In what practical way does the idea that me and the other person that both came from the same seed, what application does it have in a practical way? Because if that will have any meaning like that, then we both have good karma at the same time or something, but it doesn't really imply that, right?
Well, I mean, if we think about the Abhidharma is still talking about stained and unstained things, right?
Sorry?
The Abhidharma is still talking about stained and unstained phenomena.
Okay.
I think it was before you came in. You're saying the point of the Abhidharma is that it divides all of existence into the stained and unstained categories, right? And so the ideas of virtue and non-virtue are all still intact with the mind-only school. They're really more explaining the mechanism of how karmic seeds work. So it's still the case in the mind-only school that if you hurt someone, you get that karmic result. What they're talking about is on a more subtle level or on a more refined level, how perception works in that context.
So it's not necessarily the context that let's say I'm, I don't know, the first thing comes to my mind, I can fight with the person, I can play chess with the person, and I win, I feel really good and I feel really shitty, and both are perception. If it comes from the same seed, the one has a very shitty karma that manifests for him, and the other has a very good karma that manifests for him. So how can it be the same seed in this aspect?
Yeah, well, that becomes the philosophical debate, doesn't it, between the different schools, and so one school would say, well, can one karmic seed does one karmic seed produce one result? Does one karmic seed produce two results? Does one karmic seed produce 5 results? So that's where you get into the debates between the different schools. Do you have 5 karmic seeds come together to produce one result? So it's like that. Okay, let's stop.
Sashi Fugi Jishin Metoptram Rira Lingji Ninde Gyempadi Sangye Shindu Mite Guarhi Drogun Namda Shinga Jubasho Hidam Guru Ratna Mandalaham Ninyasayami Gawadi Gawokun Sunam Yeshe Zov Shin Sunam Yeshe Lejun Hui Dampa Vuni Do
So see that being of love and kindness and wisdom. Feel them again. Recall them. And see and feel them melting into your heart, blessing you with those qualities. And by the power of what we've done here this evening, may we practice and live only virtue continuously and quickly come to the end of all suffering and bring all beings to the end of suffering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you for coming. See you next week, perhaps. And so we'll have next week will be the end of the karma course, and then we'll do a review class after that, and then we'll take a break, I suppose, till somewhere after the New Year.
I want to have one announcement. I tried to create a group which is